Welcome everyone to another observability clinic. Today, do more with Dynatrace data, bringing Dynatrace data to life for other use cases. I've invited Matthias Scholze, CTO of Versio, who have been great partners with Dynatrace over the years with their Versio.io product. Today, Matthias, I've invited you to show us the latest and greatest on what you do with the Dynatrace data and enabling new use cases. Welcome to the Observability Clinic, Matthias. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, Andy. Thank you for inviting us again to the Observability Clinic. Today, we want to give an update on how customers can get even more out of the excellent Dynatrace data. For this, I have 3 exciting use cases, which I would like to present you today.
Perfect. Then let's get started. And maybe after every use case, we just do a quick recap. And okay. But yeah, let's go ahead. I'm very excited.
Fine. Thank you. Okay. Let's start with the versioning and recovery of Dynatrace configurations. Dynatrace itself has an internal audit log, and we offer a way to extend its functionality with Versio.io. The first step, Versio.io take over the Dynatrace configuration data. These are, for example, the anomaly detection, dashboards, alerting profiles, and so on. Versio.io detects when the Dynatrace configuration have changed and can visualize them in the live change tracking view that you can see on the left side. This is especially helpful when working in a team and noticing that a colleague has changed something in the Dynatrace monitoring configuration. In the second step, the Dynatrace configuration data is available to us in a historized form. This means that every change of a Dynatrace configuration is recorded completely over its entire life cycle. This is again exciting data for certifications, revisions, audits, and so on. In the last steps, we have the possibility to restore any configuration state from the past in Dynatrace, and we can do that directly from Versio.io web interface, or alternatively, we offer customers a prepared curl command. So now let's take a look at a live use case. Let's imagine that a user defaced the Dynatrace dashboard. He changed the name of the dashboard and deletes a display component. This change of the dashboard configuration is recorded by Versio.io. You can also run verification on each change and get notified about it. And here you have the possibility to restore a previous state of the dashboard configurations. As said before, you can do it directly from Versio.io web interface, alternatively offer a fully generated curl command line. For authentication, you have to provide a Dynatrace API token. Now, the old state of the Dynatrace dashboard is restored, and we take a look at it in Dynatrace. And of course, this change has been recorded by Versio.io again. The capture and detection of the change of Dynatrace configuration takes place fully automated and continuously. The recovery of Dynatrace configuration can be performed by a user with appropriate Dynatrace authorization. And close the list with all currently supported Dynatrace configurations. The whole thing works for all configurations which have the possibility to execute configuration via PUT or POST REST call via the Dynatrace API. This was an example of an audit log based on Versio.io using Dynatrace data. Of course, the whole thing also works with any other IT or software applications. For example, we have implemented the audit log recovery function for our virtualization and cloud platforms too. Okay, that was the first use case. Andy, do you have questions?
I'm very impressed, I gotta say, because I think you're really hitting a nail here with this use case. We know we have a lot of customers that are making changes through the UI, and some of them happen accidentally, like as you showed, and then really having the history and then the restore capability is great. Just one quick question. So that means Versio.io is on a regular basis continuously scanning the Dynatrace configuration. That means you're pulling the current configuration on a regular basis. Can you tell me how often this happens?
You can configure it by yourself, and the minimum value is 1 minute. Yeah, you can do it each 1 minute, that you make sure that you get every change what a Dynatrace admin user or Dynatrace user do.
Perfect. And then the data itself, the history, this is stuff that you store in your own database, obviously.
That's
right?
right.
You keep track of this, yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. You have the complete history with complete all attributes of the configuration, then stored in Virtual.io.
Great. Hey, thanks for the first use case. No more questions on this one. Let's see the second one.
Okay, cool. Thank you. The next one is a delta analyzer for Dynatrace topologies. Topologies can be application architectures, parts of an infrastructure, database schema, or something like this. The more extensive and complex topologies are, the more unrealistic is it to find differences. And we have automated this delta comparison in Virtual.io. A little introduction. We have 2 topologies representing an application architecture of our internal CRM system. The one on the left represents a test environment, and the one on the right represents a production environment. There's no difference on the visualization level to see. Only deep in the detailed data difference can then be determined. And now imagine a complex enterprise solution based on, for example, microservice architectures and Kubernetes. Here you and your employees will only be able to identify the delta manually with difficulty. And the effort required for this would be very, very high. Let's take a live look how Virtual.io can help you compare topologies based on Dynatrace data. We see that we have the area of delta topologies. We configured delta topology configuration. We see that we have defined 2 topologies, and the delta analyzing index is 99%. That means it's near 100%. 100% is it's the same. We see here a topology, the topology on a test environment, and we will see soon the topology of the architecture, of the application architecture on the prod, and you can't see a difference between it. Yeah, because the detail where they are different are more deeper on the attribute level. And we see here in the delta index composition that is delta based on the attribute level. We see our delta index. That means we can run more than 1 executions of the delta analyzer, and you can see how the delta index is changing. And for each one, you get a detailed report about the differences. This is a short version of the report. We show only, okay, topology core elements are the same, direct relations are the same, instance assignments are the same. And in the end, you can see the attribute level. Here we have a process, a Dynatrace process. This is an Apache server. And we see that the command line argument is different. Yeah? Here, someone starts the HTTP daemon with a different F, yeah? Lower and uppercase. I believe it's very difficult to find this difference manually. And yeah, imagine that you have a big microservice architecture with 100 microservices, then you have no chance to do it manually. And that's why you can automate it, and you can see that we can analyze a topology in seconds, and that help you to integrate it in your DevOps pipelines or other processes that you use to operate systems. Questions from your side?
Again, fascinating, because you're right. It's really hard to compare, and we have a lot of data in Dynatrace, but especially the topology, what we call Smartscape, for us is we always just show the live kind of system, and we don't provide this comparison between environments or also historically. And I think you are doing an amazing job here. I want to add some additional use cases. I think you kind of alluded to it. when you said you can integrate this into your DevOps pipeline, but especially as we see people that are making configuration and deployment changes, you can use this to really figure out, hey, when we are deploying a new version, how is this now different? Especially when you do blue-green deployments, when you do canary deployments, where are the differences? Didn't we miss anything? This example here, where you highlight even down to a command line parameter, right? Where maybe somebody made a mistake. This could have fatal implications, and you just immediately show this here. Now, I also saw in your animation here a timeline view, or like a time lapse or something like this. I guess you can then also kind of play a little bit how the infrastructure has changed over time. This is also a feature.
Yeah, that's right. We have the possibility to analyze topology to a specific time. All data in version IO are historized, and that's why we can say, okay, compare a topology from yesterday to today on the same environment. That we can do too.
Yeah, and I think this is also great, right? If you think about when you're rolling out canaries, when you're scaling up, when you're scaling down, when you're flipping, when you're switching over from one environment to another, this is truly helpful to understand how the environment changed over time. So spot on again, great use case, and our users will see a lot of value in this.
Yeah, and here we can see some practical use scenarios that we have implemented in customer projects. Very often, where delta analysis is used to identify difference between dev, QA, and prod environments. For example, to ensure that the configuration close to production are used for load testing, for example. Another example is a migration of applications from data center to the cloud. Here, it can be verified whether all artifacts were migrated correctly and completely during the migration process. And a final example is a comparison of target and actual status. Here you can, for example, check concepts for enterprise strategic IT development plans or user authorization concepts against the real world. Every day we get to know new exciting application examples in our customer projects for data comparison. Because there are a lot of topologies where you want to know what is the difference. For example, last week we have a customer that use it to identify the delta of a corporate organigram. That's possible too.
Yeah.
Cool. Then we come to our last use case that I will give you an introduction today. With this solution, we can ensure product release and end of life compliance. And let's start with a little introduction. Corporates usually have a compliance strategy, how they want to deal with deployment technology. This can be, for example, that the last release or the last patch of a technology should always be used. Another requirement may be that only long-term support versions for certain technologies may be used. Manual control of compliance with these rules is very time-consuming and error-prone. For this reason, we recommend automating this process. This way, you can easily implement the product release and patch strategy in extensive IT landscapes. In addition to comparing version information for checking whether maintenance and support for technologies is still available, Version IO documents every compliance violation, its time of occurrence, and duration. This is then again a complete audit-proof documentation, which you can also use, for example, for service provider control, certification audits, and so on. Okay, what ingredients do I need to ensure product release and end of life compliance? First, you need product names and versions information for the technologies in use. Dynatrace provides this information with the host and process instances for variety of technologies. You can see it here on this example with Tomcat and the Tomcat version. As a second component, we need content about the releases, versions, maintenance, support state, and so on of the used product technologies. Here, Version.io provides a corresponding knowledge database which contains a large number of enterprise products. At the third components, we need an information from the customer on which strategy he wants to use for verification. That's it. Now let's take a look at the live demo. Okay, we see our knowledge base, the product release lifecycle knowledge base. A lot of products, sub-processes are operating systems. And here we have detailed information about releases, major, minor patch levels. It is a long-term support product. We see maintenance, we see support schedules, and so on. And we can use this data to generate a governance risk compliance rule set. Yeah? We will see it in a minute, the details of the product that we see here right now. And now we generate a rule set. Therefore, we need a name for the rule set, and we can define, or we can use the strategy of the customer to configure it. In this case, we will check use latest patch. Then we select the data source. That means we do it for this rule set with Dynatrace data, and we have to activate the rule set. That's it. Yeah. Every change of a host or of a process will now be verified if the version of the used technology is run in the last patch level. Let's go over to the governance risk compliance section, the dashboard. We see here our rule set. We have 16 violations. We have executed 1,300 verifications to identify it. And we see now our rules. Yeah, we check Ubuntu, we check Nginx, we check Java. And you see here our root cause analysis. That means we see the version that we use, in this case 24.3, but the newest version was 24.4. And now I go in the instance viewer. I can go to the host information in this case, and I see here the data from Dynatrace that delivered us the right OS version. You see the kernel version we get from Dynatrace 2. And let's have a look to another example. We choose the Nginx, and you can see here our rule. With this rule, we verify the state, and we see here, okay, we have a newer last patch level. And again, we can go in our instance history viewer, where you can see all changes and the state of the process, and you can check it. Yes, this Nginx has a version in production, and there are a newer patch available. Yeah, and so easy it can be. And yeah, imagine that you have a big environment, an enterprise environment, where you have to verify the compliance of thousands of technologies and operating systems. It's not executable manually. That's why you need Version.io to automate it. And the configuration is very easy. You choose your products, or you take all products and you say, okay, check it. And then you have a common view in our dashboards, what last patch activities are to plan. Questions from your side, Ed?
Yes, a couple of questions. So the first question I have is the database that you have for the versions. I assume you are updating this automatically by pulling data from different data sources of these, like you had Java, you had Nginx, so you're pulling this data into your database and you keep your database up to date?
It's part to part. We we have an employee that manages the data in this database. He checks it every week if there are no new versions. And on the other hand, we have a rule control loop where we implement the newest version of all products on a host, and then we can check is there a newer version like in our database. And with this, we can maintain this information. That means you have daily or weekly data available.
Perfect. Then the next question that I have, and I'm sure the answer is yes, but when you set up your data source and you set up Dynatrace, I assume you can also do filters where you can say, I want to apply these rules, let's say, to a particular environment in Dynatrace, to a particular management zone, because some of our customers have, let's say, pre-prod and prod, and we have different rules for production than for pre-prod. Yeah, that's also possible. Great.
Every time it's possible to use, for example, topology, and topology can be a management zone to filter your scope on a specific area. For example, you have an application owner, and this application owner has other compliance requirements like her neighborhood. Then he can configure it in Version and can use topology or a management zone as a filter criteria.
Cool. And then I got one more question. So in case you identify a violation of your policy, do you already have or do you plan to send events over to Dynatrace? So it would be nice to actually see it on the Dynatrace side as well, let's say on the host or on the process where say, hey, Versio.io detected a policy violation, and then we could have an event, and that event could then even trigger a problem, and the problem could then trigger an event.
We capture the starting point of the violation. In this case, there's a newer patch available, and we create an event in Versio.io, and you can use this event to alerting to Dynatrace itself. That means you get an event on the Dynatrace instance. Here is an event that there is a new last patch available. You can send the alert, for example, to Ansible 2. And if you have a cookbook there, then you can start it to update the Ubuntu operating system or whatever you want. And I believe it's very important we identify the end of the violation too, and it's an event again, and you can do things with the event like the starting event.
This is extremely powerful, Matthias, and I also think
the most important point for us is every time automation and documentation. You get a complete documentation when a violation starts, when a violation ends. And that's for our customers from the banking, finance sector. It's very important for regulatory requirements.
Very nice. Matthias, it's really amazing what you can do with data like that comes from Dynatrace. I know Versio.io has other data sources as well. So I encourage everyone to look at Versio.io because you're opening up new use cases that are very important, especially in regulated environments, but also in any type of environments. If you think about the versioning and recovery, you showed the Delta Analyzer or the end of life compliance. Maybe last question, because we have both Dynatrace SaaS customers and also managed customers. What's the offering that Versio.io has for both type of customers?
We offer Versio as a SaaS version, and for our specific customers, we have a managed version too. That means you can install Versio.io in your own data center, or if you don't like it, then you can use Versio.io as a service, software as a service offering.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Matthias. I'm pretty sure this is not the last time that we have you on my Observability Clinic, because I know there's a lot of cool innovation that constantly comes out. We're also constantly updating and providing new APIs where you can get even more data out of Dynatrace. Just thinking about our security capabilities that we now have. I'm sure this is something that you're thinking of then also everything we do around our automation and orchestration capabilities. I think there's a bright future ahead of us for both of our customers, as well as with more use cases that you build.
Thanks for your feedback and for your invitation to your observability clinic.
Of course. With this, everyone, if you have questions, Versio is the place you should go and start. You have our names obviously here. You can always reach out, and all the best. Thank you and goodbye.
Thanks and bye.